Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. They're all big, but we have one of my favorite people in the community here today, Pastor Martin Hutchison. Welcome, Martin.
Welcome. Nice to be here.
So all the attention is about to be on you because spring is coming if it's not already here, and you are the Secretary of Community Gardens for the city of Salisbury, in addition to your role as a pastor at the Community of Joy Church. You're about to get knee deep out in the dirt here soon.
Not knee deep, but arm deep,
Yeah.
elbow deep, and yeah, we've already started. We had a homeschool group there a week ago, about 25 to 30 kids, reclaiming the garden beds from last season and getting ready for this season. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting our hands in the soil and planting some good vegetables.
So a couple years ago, we did a story about the crucial ingredients that every community needs to succeed. And we have a lot of those stuff, like a university, a good library, a fairly good school system. We've got a brewery, things like that,
Sure.
An airport, community college. And you made the point that it's really important, too, that we have community gardens. And we have that, and that is sort of a decider in terms of communities being a success.
I think it's it plays a huge role in the success of the community. The community garden is a place for neighbors to become more connected to each other. It's a place to engage bored children. It's a place to make a positive impact in the life of a neighborhood, and we're seeing that.
And how many community gardens are there now in Salisbury?
Well, I don't know how many there are, 9, 10, 11, something like that. On city lots, there are 3 or 4 now. Camden was the first. And then there's one on a county lot at the Salvation Army Hazel Center. And then there's some private ones like St. Albans has a community garden. Halo has a community garden. The Mac Center has 2 community gardens. SU has a community garden. We're working at some community gardens at schools.
Right.
I've been working hard with Choices Academy, the alternative school here in the Wicomico
Right,
public
they just
school
put theirs
system.
in last year, yeah.
Well, we put the sign in last year
Okay.
because the students who designed the sign, we weren't sure whether they would be back this year. We hoped they wouldn't be.
Right.
And we wanted them to see the work that they had done. They designed it, so we put it up, hoping that the fence would get up pretty quickly, but then we struggled to raise funds. And now we've got the funds, but we don't have the fence, so we're still in that process. We're putting a hoop house there, which will give us ability to grow vegetables during the school year.
And the Parkside program is terrific because they teach the gardening out there, so you guys are able to integrate all this stuff.
Well, they do. They teach growing of flowers and vegetable plants to start, then to put into the garden. They don't do a whole lot with vegetable garden in terms of production. But they do. Jerry Kelly does a lot of cool stuff with his students.
Right.
He's a real asset to this community.
So they're getting a lesson in that, and it makes it a top of mind thing that you can grow your food.
Yes. And I always get invited to go in and speak to his exploratory students, and that's the angle that I take. That it's important to know how to grow food and to know where food comes from. It doesn't come from Acme. It doesn't come from Walmart. It doesn't come from Food Lion.
Right.
Somebody has to work hard to produce that food. And if you know how to produce food, you can eat healthier, and you know what you're eating.
Now, the Camden Community Garden, that's certainly the king of all gardens.
Well, I don't know if it is.
But it's made a huge impact on that community.
It has. It has made a huge impact. The crime rates have gone down. I don't know if that's still the case. The neighborhood is a fluctuating neighborhood. It's constantly changing and transitioning, but we have seen the crime rates go down in the past. I suspect they're still good.
A police officer told me, and I don't know if this is true, but he said that Newton Street, Light Street, Camden area used to be the most dangerous part of town. That's where people would meet and do bad things. But now he says there is no crime there at all, and it's because of the community garden.
Well, I don't know that there's no crime, but
Right.
there's less crime for sure. Last year, in the beginning of the season, we would see some drug deals go down on the street and that kind of thing. So I'm sure there's crime, but I'm sure it's less because when you have an influx of people coming in to work and hang out there, it pushes that element to another area. And that's the sad reality of it. It's probably not gone. It's probably just moved a couple streets over or to another part of the neighborhood.
Right.
I think it's a beautiful neighborhood. It has everything. It has all walks of life, lots of variety in terms of diversity, cultural diversity. And we see that in the garden, and it creates a challenge sometimes when we can't speak the language, but we figure out how to communicate with one another, and it's really rich and rewarding to interact with people from different cultures and see how they do things and what they like and the way they like to use vegetables. Haven't figured this one out yet, but the last 2 years I've planted some cabbages, and right before the cabbage starts to, right as it's developing its head, some culture comes in and cuts that little teeny tiny 5-6 leaves that is curled into a head off and takes them. And I had like 75 cabbage plants, and they did that to all of them. So it wasn't vandalism, and it's happened every time I've put cabbage in there. But it's some culture that's a delicacy and a dish that they cook. The problem is then that destroys the plant, and
yeah.
I can't grow a cabbage head.
Yeah.
So I've quit growing cabbage. But it's really fascinating to see the way different cultures engage with vegetables.
Now, it's more than just a garden, because you've got programs there that are just amazing to me.
It is. And we talk about growing more than veggies because the garden is the platform, but there's a whole lot more that we do. It's really community transformation. We engage bored children who are on the playground in activities. The first year we decided to add summer lunch at the garden the next season to address the boredom factor. So Monday through Friday, all summer long, we partner with the Board of Ed or some entity to bring in lunch and provide a healthy meal to children under 18. And then the last 3 years, we have had art as a part of that 3 days a week, thanks to the Salisbury Rotary Club that meets on Thursday evenings down on Riverside Drive. They have funded that. We have a art teacher and supplies, and the kids can express themselves and learn different art techniques and just engage that boredom factor.
Right.
We work hard at connecting, developing relationships. We like it when the same adults come day in and day out so that they can get to know the children, and because I think it's really important to connect on a relational level with the children, with the neighborhood. And then, of course, coming up this spring, hopefully, the City Community Center, the Newton Community Center will be
going to be right
opening.
there at the corner of Newton and Light.
Yep.
A beautiful building.
It is.
Fell in disrepair, but now it's about to have a renaissance.
It is. And we're really excited about the potential and possibility that has to benefit the community, not just the children. We're calling it a community center, and I'm really hoping that it's going to be used in the after school hours, during the day, so that adults can maybe get some job skills or various things that could be beneficial to the adults of the community as well.
Yeah, and it's going to be a nice hub there.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And it's all right in line. So you got the community center, you got the playground where we do summer lunch and art, which hopefully will move into the community center. But if not, we'll still do it in the playground. And then you got the garden, and it's all right there. It's intimately connected. It's 1, 2, 3 right in a row.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be an exciting time for the neighborhood.
How did you all come up with the summer lunch program? Because that really impresses me. The things I've seen there, with the kids come in, there's a sense of community. People have brought you food, have contributed. It keeps the kids engaged. It really builds
It does.
Some interpersonal skills. It's really a cool thing.
It really is. It just was a need. We noticed that there was a lot of vegetable mischief. The first year, bored children were coming to the playground. There's a few playground apparatus there. After you've slidden down the slide a couple of times,
Right.
You're done. It's bored. So then you look for something else to do. And so they'd go to the garden, they'd grab some tomatoes, they'd throw them at each other. Lots of fun.
Yeah.
But detrimental to what we're trying to do. And so we thought, rather than fuss at them or yell at them or constantly be scolding them, let's engage them in some fashion. And so we also realized that a lot of the children maybe didn't have access to food during the summer in the day. And so if we could meet that need with a lunch And then the Board of Ed suggested if we added some kind of an activity component to it, it would be better received. And so we did that. The first year we played games, board games, sports activities, crafts, various things, and then we added the art in the garden. Basically, that was a neighbor who lived next to the garden, who was an artist, worked for Salisbury Art Space, and said, I'm going to get a grant and start teaching art. And that's what she did. And we liked it so much that we then went to the Rotary Club where she got her grant from. She moved on to Northern Virginia. She still keeps in touch and is excited to see that it's continuing. And we do art now. It's a regular part, 3 days a week in the garden.
Is she the one that did your mural?
No, she's the one who did the painted on the little library.
Okay, right. Okay,
that we have.
The little library is really a cool thing too.
It is a cool thing, and that was a thing we were told we couldn't do. We did it anyway.
Right.
With, an Eagle Scout, and then the second
no
garden
vandalism
that we did,
in that thing. It's been fine. Yeah.
One time they tore the front door off, but we replaced it. And it's going well, and the books are going out of there, and I have a good supply of books from various sources, and we're delighted to be able to put books in children's hands, because we believe that stretches the horizon, changes the trajectory of their life if they can have those books. It's not that they can't go to the public library, but it's across some dangerous streets, and if they don't have an adult to supervise, this just makes it closer to them.
Yeah, it's access. It's
we're delighted.
Great.
It is. It is.
Now, you grew up on a farm. I did too.
I did.
And a rite of passage is a great tomato fight.
It is.
In a tomato patch. I mean,
especially when you grow 80 acres. We grew 80 acres of tomatoes, and we get off the picker and we'd throw tomatoes.
The riper the better, in late July, early. I mean, that's just perfect. But and this happened the first year. I remember the first year when you guys did the garden, there was something on social networking. Some kids had gone in, someone had gone in and done something wrong, and I thought, oh gosh, this is going to be dead now, and we can't have anything nice in Salisbury. And so that was my reaction.
And now we're 6 years in.
We're 6 years in, but the way you handled it at the time, you didn't get mad about it. You didn't put up fences. You didn't put up cameras. You went and engaged the kids and just talked about this thing, and it became a teachable thing.
Well, sure. If we had handled it differently, if we had put up fences, they would have climbed over the fence. They would have broken in. If we had yelled at them, the kids get yelled at enough, and so we really want to be a positive force in their life, and we tried to engage it in that way, and that's part of what Summer Lunch was, to engage it in a positive way. There's so much negativity in our world, and we don't need to add to that.
The other thing you do, groups will come out and work on the garden together.
Yes.
It ends up being like a team building thing,
Yes.
almost like the Habitat builds together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that works out really well.
We've had groups like Comcast Cares came and helped us build a couple of beds when we were in that phase. When we first built it, Pinehurst Elementary School sent a whole bunch of parents and students and teachers out. We've had 5th grade students come down. We had a homeschool group a couple weeks ago, and another one coming, in addition to the regular work nights that we do for the community, where last year it was really cool. The same people came to every work night almost, and we became a community, a small group, a connected band of people, and some of us still interact outside of the garden. It was neat last year. One of the persons who just moved to the area, her son lived here and knew about the garden and said, Mom, you should go down and get engaged in the garden. And she lives in the community, in the neighborhood around the garden, and so she came down the very first night we had a work night, and she's been a mainstay. We didn't have a work night one week, and she said it was Wednesday night, and I was feeling really blue, and I was trying to figure out why, and then I realized it's a garden work night, and I'm not at the garden. I needed to be there. And then she and I have partnered at Pinehurst, where I mentor some students that live in the neighborhood around the garden. Been doing that for 6 years now.
Which, by the way, thank you for that. I see on social networking, you don't make a big deal about that.
Well, I try to promote it because it's a really important thing.
The Rotary has gotten in there, and they've helped that as well. But that's been a great thing where you're working with these kids at Pinehurst.
Yes, it's a wonderful thing to mentor students, to stay engaged in that relationship long term. She and I were just there yesterday for an hour. Pretty much, we have four boys that we're mentoring now from the garden. It started with 2, and now we're up to 4. One of them told us yesterday he's probably going to change schools, and that just makes me really sad. I'm trying to figure out if I can add an extra hour into my week to go to the new school to engage with him and maybe someone else, because it's such a positive thing. You give, but you get so much more than you give when you mentor a child.
The other thing about the garden that was always cool, you'd have police officers out there, and certainly our good friend Bull Hutchison, the late Bull Hutchison, was there all the time.
He was.
He would interact with the kids. He was a great sort of mascot for the police department.
Yes.
Everyone loved him and they learned about police officers in a different way.
They did and do, and we miss him terribly. His partner, John Damari, has continued to come, not as frequently as Bull did. They shift differently, and so when he's on daytime and we're there, he comes. And he's had a summer worker, I don't forget what that program is called, that
kind of goes with him along, right along kind of thing almost.
He comes along, and last year was his second summer doing that with Damari. He did it with Bull the summer before and Damari, and so he came as well, and really has come out of his shell and seems to really enjoy the garden and interacting a little bit with the kids.
Yeah, that's a really great thing.
It is. It really is.
One of your other things is you work very closely with the homeless people in our community.
We're in that mode right now. We're just completing the first of 3 weeks back to back that we're running a homeless shelter. We cooperate with 12 or 13 other churches in the community.
And I don't explain this whole program because I don't think people know that the churches all take a turn at hosting some homeless folks.
They do. So it was a model that came out of Richmond, Virginia, about 16, 17 years ago now, that church buildings are not used during the week, sometimes not at all, sometimes very little. So why not use church buildings as an emergency shelter place to put some cots up and host homeless people? We only focus on men. The women tend to get cared for in a variety of other ways, and there's more homeless men than women. So we provide shelter for women. In the beginning stages, until about 3 years ago, we had 2 sites that we had about 50 people at. So we were hosting about 100 homeless men.
Wow.
Then Halo opened and had 50 beds, and so we decided to cut back to 1 site a week because they weren't going to meet the whole need of the population, and there would still be people that would be unsheltered. Right. So we run 1 church site a week from January through the end of March, and it rotates from church to church. Currently, it is in our facility is too small to host the need. We've been running 42, 43 people a night. Last night we only had 36, but most nights it's been upwards of 43. We have 43 beds. So we can't hold that many in our facility because they were in our sanctuary. We have chairs, and we move the chairs and set the cots up. So the Wicomico Presbyterian Church bought what is now the Langler Memorial Building. It used to be Allen Memorial Baptist Fellowship Hall. Prior to that, I think it was Asbury's Fellowship Hall, and Asbury was on that side of town. And they have graciously allowed us to use it for 6 weeks. Community of Joy, the Restoration Project, Beacon of Light, and Bethany Lutheran, the 4 churches that we work with for our 3 weeks, are hosting now. Sunrise is in there after us, and then the week before us was Park Adventist Church as well. So it's been a great thing, and that's a great location. Some of us are working hard. The coordinator for that, Walter Davidson, who's a car salesman at Pohanka, is working hard to find a building to do a permanent shelter in the hopes that we can help people break the cycle. What we do in the cold weather shelter is just keep them from dying on the streets in the cold.
Right.
We can't resource them. We can't do the things that are needed. It's easier in our 3 weeks because we're in the same location and they don't move to be able to help a little bit. But if you had them a longer period of time, you could really resource them to try to break that. The city is doing a great job with the Housing First program. Christine Chestnut, Joey Rufo.
They work really hard at it.
They
I know
do.
that. Yeah.
They work hard at it. They have a heart for it. They have passion for it, and they are truly breaking the cycle. I've been in this now for 16 years because I started first with a friend who was at St. Peter's and stayed with him, and that was my introduction to it. When we bought our facility, we ripped the pews out so we could do it. And so for a while, we would see the same people year in and year out. And now that the city's doing Housing First, we don't see the same people. I mean, we have a few people in the shelter that we've seen before, but a lot of the repeat guests are housed. And it's really wonderful to know that they're being taken care of.
Right. Are the numbers higher, lower? What's the trend on this?
Well, so I think they're higher. Last year we had 38, probably on average. I think we had 53 different men throughout the 2 weeks that we ran the shelter. I haven't done the numbers in terms of different men this year, but we've been averaging 41 a night probably, with a high of 43 and the low of 36 last night.
Is there any consensus on their stories, what got them there?
It's a variety of things. Some
You probably don't pry a whole lot into that anyway.
We don't.
Yeah.
We don't. We listen. If they want to tell,
Right.
We're happy to tell, but we try to treat them like people.
Right.
We try to love on them as best we can. You know, we give them a hot meal when they come in. Well, actually, when they come in the door, they get snacks. Because if you've been outside all day trying to stay warm, you've used a lot of energy, so you're hungry. So we give them snacks and hot coffee they love. Then they get a hot meal in the evening. They get a hot breakfast in the morning. For our 3 weeks of the shelter, Bethany Lutheran provides that. Other shelters don't do the hot breakfast. We're not saying that they need to or don't, but they are fed. We do a breakfast sandwich kind of thing, and then they get a lunch out the door. So yes, each of their stories is different. And some of it is true, and some of it is a story, and you know how that goes. And that's true with all of us. They're all in need of love, and so we try to love on them as best we can. Some of the people in the shelter are the classic things brought them there. They have mental health problems and aren't being treated effectively. Our country's mental health system is not the greatest. Some of them have addiction problems, and that gets them in trouble and in a cycle. Some of them have run-ins with the law, and some of them just poorly managed money.
Yeah.
Or had an illness that cost them a lot, and they lost their home or lost a place or didn't have family members. It's a variety of reasons. Our oldest this year is 72.
Wow.
And our youngest is 26.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, I know you're downtown a lot, and
I am. I love downtown.
The Old Town Cafe, they're doing a thing, a pay it forward thing.
They are. I am a kindness commissioner in the city of Salisbury, and working hard with my friend Grace Foxwell Murdoch, the Secretary of Kindness.
Who works way too hard, I think. But yes.
She works hard, and you're seeing the evidence of her work pay off. But yeah, Old Town Cafe had decided that the construction outside, everybody was treating the construction workers poorly, yelling at them, cursing, right, giving them the finger, just all this unkind stuff.
You're making noise.
Yeah,
how dare you?
And you're beautifying our city. Yeah, it's taken a while, but ultimately the end goal is going to be wonderful. And so they said, let's engage that. And let's start a kindness ripple. Let's buy breakfast for them. And so they did a buy one, get one free. You buy breakfast, every breakfast sandwich you buy. The next day they gave breakfast sandwiches out to the workers. And then businesses caught on to that, and it's become a wave. We first talk about it as a ripple. When you throw a stone in the water, it ripples out. And that's kind of what it is. But this has become more of a wave than a ripple. And it's just beautiful to see.
A lot of these guys are coming from Delaware. They don't know anything about Salisbury. Most of their perception of Salisbury is bad.
It is.
And they're going home every night going, these people in Salisbury are really terrific.
Right. They are. And they're even buying for other businesses.
Right.
You know, it's just really, really cool.
Right.
Yesterday I was in there, and must have been one of the first 10, because a business had come in and said, I want to buy lunch for the first 10 people, and left gift cards of $10 each. So they gave $100 to be
Yeah, there was a $100 bill there. I was like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah. And I said, no thanks, I'll buy my own, and you pay that to someone else, because I want that kindness ripple to just keep going, become a wave.
It's just terrific. And I admire your all's work in that. It's one of those things, when I first heard about it, I was rolling my eyes, cynical like most people are.
Yeah, you do that frequently.
Yeah,
you gotta stop
I'm wrong
that.
about everything. But it's really been a really cool thing.
It is. And it's so much fun. It's fun to be kind to someone or do some random act of kindness.
They're thrown off by it.
It feeds you and it feeds them.
Yeah.
In huge ways. I love it. Absolutely love being able to do something. And the other day I was having breakfast with Grace and a mutual friend, and I went to pay for mine, and I was told that it was paid for, that she had taken care of it. And we were sitting there, and we got up to leave, and she said, oh, I got to pay for breakfast. I jumped up right in front of her, and I took care of it, and I love that, being able to best the kindness queen, you know? And she was like,
well, it's so funny. I shouldn't tell you this, but I was in there when you were in there with Grace, and you all said a little prayer before you ate. And I was just sitting there, and I was trying to think about what you were saying, and it was this depressing, rainy day. Was it Monday? It was just everything about the day was just awful. And in your little prayer, you talked about how we need the rain for the spring and the flowers. And I was like, oh, no, I'm glad it's raining. So that little moment of fellowship, just overhearing what you were saying, really changed my day. And it really set me on a different course. And I admire that you get to have that in your head all the time. You can actually live that way.
Well, I try to tell people all the time that, don't complain about the rain, because we need the rain.
Yeah.
If you like to eat, you need the rain. And we irrigate our community gardens, but the rain, we can't do what God does through the rain. Now, the flip side of the rain is it's an inconvenience sometimes if you have to be out in it. If you're a homeless person, you get wet feet, and so those nights it rains, we give them dry socks. But then they can't always have a second pair of shoes, so sometimes their shoes are wet.
What can people do to help you in the garden?
We announce our work days on social media, Camden Community Garden. Be sure you get the one in the U.S. because there is one in Australia called Camden Community Garden.
That would be a long commute.
Well, they have one of our Zacco pottery mugs over there. They somehow found it on Facebook and asked to buy one. And so I had USA put on it so you couldn't get it confused. But just like our Facebook page and come out on our work days. You don't have to be from the neighborhood to work with us. We do like it to be people from the neighborhood who pick the vegetables. But come and work. It's lots of fun. And there's other community gardens that need help as well. They're in various degrees of growth and progress. I met a guy yesterday who's just moved to the community, from South Bend, Indiana, had lots of community gardens out there, and he wants to get involved. So I'm partnering him with another community garden to be the impetus to take that to a new level.
He's Martin Hutchison. He's our Secretary of Community Gardens for the City of Salisbury. We're thrilled that he was here today. Thanks for all you do for our community, Martin.
I am but a servant.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. Another edition of One-on-One right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and One-on-One. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.